Hello, I'm Casey Aiken. This is 21 This Week. Coming up next, religious parents in Montgomery County sued to opt out of offensive MCPS curriculum and lost. What happens next? As COVID cases reemerge, Silver Spring Elementary School reinstates a mask mandate. Can Republicans retake the wide-open 6th congressional district seat it lost in 2012? Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by President of Montgomery County Federation of Republican Women, Laurie Halverson, and former County Council member and CEO of SkillSmart, Mike Knapp. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. Over the summer, an effort by parents to allow their children to opt out of a Montgomery County public school system curriculum featuring LGBTQ plus books culminated in a decision by the U.S. District Court for Maryland rejecting their petition for a preliminary injunction. Laurie, District Court Judge Deborah Boardman concluded that a parent's right to opt out of a public school curriculum that conflicts with their religious views is not a fundamental right. But is this going to be the end of it?
No, I think it's just the beginning. The full case has not yet been heard, and I'm hearing that the parents will appeal. So I think, the issue is these are the people who are for the LGBTQ curriculum. They're for it because they want to teach tolerance. But the parents, they're suing because they think that MCPS is breaking the law. Because the LGBTQ curriculum is teaching sex education, which allows an opt-out policy, which allows them to opt out of the curriculum for their child. So, can parents prove? I don't know if will they be able to prove that children can essentially be harmed by this curriculum? And it'll be interesting to see how it turns out.
Mike, this effort has been going on since last February, and it's an interesting mix of people who are objecting to this. There's a diverse group of religions, Muslims, Christians, and Latter-day Saints that are part of the fight for the right to opt out of the curriculum. According to one mother who would only describe herself as an Ethiopian Christian, she called the school's actions a state-sponsored campaign to shame her into a corner. They're just trying to replace our values, and they're not just pushing to read books, but to create an army of our kids. It's a religion for them. I feel as a Christian, my kids are getting rebaptized in another religion. We've had a long history. Our country was founded on a long history of religious freedom. Shouldn't their views be respected?
I think their views are respected. I appreciate the emotion that the woman you just read through spoke of. But I think that there are lots of things that happen in the world that we see that we like and we don't like. I think the challenge for any parent and for any particular religion is to be able to then engage themselves and their children in being able to interpret what that is and how that fits within their value system. It doesn't mean that you don't get to see it, and those things that you don't like or you don't recognize or don't want to see don't happen. They do. And the challenge is how do you then put that in a frame in your world and with your children that they can then understand and appreciate.
Yeah, but I mean, I hear that, but I also understand what the MCPS says that they're teaching tolerance and acceptance in their community. But the argument that the parents are making, just as Laurie indicated, is that what's being taught is not just tolerance; it's teaching sex education at a lower age.
No, I don't agree. They're not teaching sex education. If you looked at what the books were, they're identifying examples of situations where two men may be together, two women may be together, or people are doing things that happen in society. That's a reality. And I think the challenge that you have, and I was looking at one of the quotes that I guess Eric Baxter, Vice President, Senior Counsel to the Beckert Foundation for Religious Liberty, said, "Parents know and love their children best, and that's why all kids deserve to have their parents help them understand issues like gender identity and sexuality." And they do. And as a parent, there were a lot of those things that presented themselves. Not at the time I would have necessarily wanted to be able to have that conversation with my child, but the world took place. They saw things that happened. And the reality is that then you as a parent have the opportunity to guide and to teach that individual at that point. That's where I think those pieces come together. I don't necessarily think that you keep people from seeing things. It's how you react to them and teach them about what that means to you.
So, Laurie, in addition to the stated purpose of teaching tolerance, and acceptance, the school administrators cite logistical difficulties for allowing parents to determine which part of the MCPS curriculum is objectionable, and it's going to create chaos. Doesn't the school system have an obligation to all students, not just those that object?
Let's look at the word obligation and what that means in the school system. The federal level, the 14th Amendment says that states that no child can be denied equal access to an education. At the state and local levels, the obligation is to create curriculums for children and decide what should be taught. Well, there is proof, thanks to the CARE organization. They're a Muslim nonprofit group that is involved in suing the school system. They were able to uncover documents that a year ago, principals stated that they were uncomfortable and had concerns about some of the elementary curriculum that was being portrayed, and some of the comments that were suggesting how teachers should be teaching that curriculum. It's very alarming to me when I read those documents. That should be out there for all parents to see what they're recommending teachers say. Such as, some of the stuff is ridiculous that, maybe, sometimes we guess when babies are born, if they're a boy or a girl, but sometimes they might be wrong. What in the heck is that? That is so wrong. It should not be taught. I don't think it should just be an opt-out policy. There should be no sex stuff taught to any child, hetero or homosexual, in the elementary ages. And I think we can all agree that, and in fact, most voters agree. There was a poll out there, University of Maryland, that said that most voters do not want that type of stuff taught to elementary children.
Well, that kind of dovetails into the final question, Mike, which is the parental rights movement, which has been gaining strength in Virginia and other states around the country. Is that going to be a major issue when we go to the polls in 2024, that parental rights is becoming more and more important, and it's going to have an impact on local races and on national races?
Well, I think there's certainly a number of groups that are going to try and make that be an issue. I'll be curious to see how relevant it becomes in Montgomery County. I think it obviously had a lot to do with some things that took place in Virginia. I think, unfortunately, the other former governor in Virginia made some poorly worded comments, which I think fomented the activity there. I'm still kind of curious and waiting for people to explain to me fully what parental rights actually mean. Parents have rights, and parents work every day at raising their children, and some do a good job and some don't. So I'm just intrigued to see this whole parental rights thing. I think is fascinating to watch. And I see the states where it's taking place. I don't think it'll have that much of a role in Montgomery County or Maryland, honestly.
Well, we're going to go to our next topic, but I will tell you, the fact that there's a coalition that is suing the school system over what is being taught there is a remarkable change for Montgomery County, and maybe the endorsement of the Apple ballot won't be as effective during the next election cycle. We got to wait and see.
That would be okay.
We got to wait and see what's going to happen, because it is the beginning of the school year, and this is our school year edition. So I want to change topics slightly to COVID. And years from now, epidemiologists, sociologists.
Good thing we haven't talked about COVID at all.
No, we haven't at all. Only 3 years, constantly for 3 years. They're going to just deconstruct the COVID pandemic, not just because of the number of deaths that were caused by it and the number of illnesses and the long-term impact, but the societal impact that this has had on our society at large. Now, there's a new variant of the ever-elusive disease known as, I'm not even going to try to say it. It's been reported in 5 different states. We know First Lady Jill Biden came down with it. But what we know so far is this, and it's according to CNN, U.S. labs suggest that the new COVID rules may be less contagious and less immune evasive than feared. And in other words, our own immune systems can recognize and fight off this variant as well, and perhaps better than the other variants. So here in Montgomery County, we've had reports that a new case of COVID-19 has caused swift reaction from one MCPS school, Rosemary Hills Elementary School in Silver Spring, where students are being required to wear KN95 masks for at least 10 days. Mike, there's a lot of evidence that especially from the Cochrane Library, a world-renowned medical database, that found that through 78 randomized control tests, that wearing masks makes little or no difference to the general public what kind of mask is used. Are we overreacting here?
Well, I don't know there's a we. I think there was an elementary school in Montgomery County, and we have over 200 schools in the county. And so I think that probably, and I don't know this for a fact, but the reality is that I think schools can understand and appreciate what's happening in their community. And interestingly, I think Montgomery County was more okay with more okay with wearing masks than many other jurisdictions in the country. And I think there are communities that feel that that's okay and probably weren't opposed to that. I think there are a lot of places that came out the other side. So I think it's reflective of that individual elementary school, that community reacting as they did. And I take that as, part of what we've seen a lot across the country.
Well, just as we have talked about this issue for 3 years, I mean, there's a lot of evidence. And Laurie, National Public Radio reported that numerous scientific papers have established that it can be harder to hear and understand speech and identify facial expressions and emotions when people are wearing masks, which are critical in development at tasks, particularly for children. And even Randy Weingartner, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, said classroom teachers are reporting that the constant use of masks impedes the learning process, and parents have expressed dismay about their children's overall health and well-being after wearing masks. So why are we going down a path if the masks have been proven to be ineffective and they're being detrimental to our children? Why are we continuing reinstituting mask mandates?
Well, I'm pretty sure that Rosemary Hills is not acting alone, because I think they hired a health person for MCPS who's supposed to be helping schools make decisions on these issues. So I'm sure they got advice from headquarters on this. And I think they're doing this because MCPS has become accustomed to controlling families. It's been happening for several years now during COVID, and families have been conditioned to in Montgomery County to follow what they're told, like lab rats. I mean, it's unbelievable. I don't know. I don't know why Montgomery County is so different than anywhere else, because I still go to the grocery store and see a lot more people wearing masks than anywhere else in the United States. Like this summer, I've been to, Ocean City and all these other places and around the country, and I don't see people wearing masks like they do in Montgomery County. It is a virtue signaling thing in the county.
I think the issue is we're so risk adverse that we do anything, that we overreact. I mean, if this was called the common cold, would we all be wearing masks?
Well, and where are the PTA?
I think we're learning more. I think, to your point, as you pointed at the intro to this, and quite honestly, scientifically, they indicated this would be the case over time, that once our bodies could understand COVID and biologically react to it, we would be able to address it more readily, and our immune systems would grow and be able to identify, detect it, and respond differently than they did early on. And I think you're seeing that. I think there is some sense of security that you see with some people. To your point, Laurie, I traveled too. In fact, I was just in Seattle over the weekend and was surprised at how many people wore masks.
Well, that's Seattle.
Well, as opposed to what? As opposed to Waco, Texas, where they don't wear any masks? I mean, we can identify extremes to both ends, but I think it's interesting to see individually where people find a sense of security in doing that. Does that make it bad? I don't think it makes it bad. I think if it helps them. I mean, there have been parts of the population that have worn masks long before COVID, and then before they looked really out of place, and now they don't look quite as out of place as they once did.
Well, we got to end this. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about the school system. There's some new evidence that has come out about the operation of the school system and the budgeting, and an effort by the county executive to get greater control over funding. So we've got lots to talk about in the weeks to come about.
There are lots of issues, lots of issues to be addressed there that we should talk about, and I look forward to talking about those too. And I'm fascinated by the county executive's efforts to try to do something.
Well, that's interesting. We got to save that. When we come back from this short break, in 2012, the 6th congressional district switched from red to blue. Can Republicans win back this open seat? Stay tuned. And welcome back. In 2012, the 6th congressional district was gerrymandered significantly as a result of the 2010 census. At that time, the district lost heavily Republican Carroll County, as well as the more conservative portions of Frederick County, while absorbing heavily Democratic precincts in Montgomery County, turning the 6th district from a reliable Republican district into a Democratic-leaning district. In this past spring, incumbent Democratic Congressman David Trone announced that he would not run for re-election, but instead would run for the U.S. Senate seat being vacated by Ben Cardin, leaving the 6th district wide open for all comers. Mike, by my count, there are at least 9 Democrats who have announced their campaign or have filed with the State Board of Election, with the majority overwhelmingly coming from Montgomery County. Now, according to noted political observer Adam Panucco, the winner of the Democratic primary could win with less than 30% of the vote. And since the concentration of votes come from Montgomery County, if a candidate like Mia Mason from Frederick wins, is she going to be weakened going into the general election?
Oh, probably. I think it's a really interesting dynamic to see how this will work through the primary and how that then changes through the actual general election process. And we saw Congressman Trone was really in a dogfight, really, to win re-election. And until absentee ballots were counted, he was actually it was neck and neck. And so I think that it is not a foregone conclusion that a Democrat comes through in a strong position. And interestingly, of the 9 who have announced, arguably none of them are particularly strong candidates. They're all nice candidates. They're all nice people. But when you think about some of the folks who could be out there, like a Jan Gardner, a former county executive in Frederick, or some of our more senior sitting legislative folks who've yet to kind of weigh in as to whether or not they're going to run, I'm intrigued at the level of the candidates that are out there. And so I think they are none of them are particularly strong, and especially if they're running from Montgomery County.
Well, one of the axioms of politics, as you know, Mike, is that you don't run just to win the primary. You run to win the general election. And isn't the fear is that some of these lesser candidates maybe have a very strong base and can be elected in the primary, but not win in the general election?
Well, and I think that's a real problem that many Montgomery County elected officials have, because in Montgomery County, you run in the primary. And I'm trying to think of any even really run of any consequence in a general election. I think I was one of the last candidates in the county that actually had to run a real race in a general election. And that was 10 years ago. And so I think most people don't know how to run the next step. They know how to run a primary. They don't know how to run 2 sets of races. And so I think that's a real challenge and a real detriment to somebody coming out of Montgomery County right now.
So let's switch to the topic du jour, Laurie. So 3 Republicans have filed, and recently former delegate Neil Parrott, who in 2022 received 45% of the general election vote, announced the opening of an exploratory committee for another run for the seat. Is this a golden opportunity for Republicans to take back the seat?
I think Republicans do have a really good chance in this one district. It is, Neil Parrott has run a couple times now, and he came close, but he still is not getting what he needs in Montgomery County. The votes, in Montgomery County were so much, I can't remember the exact statistics, but I know Trone did so much better than he did in Montgomery County. And he worked really hard in Montgomery County last time. He's got to work harder. I know of 6 people so far who are planning to run, and a number of these people have been out at Republican events this summer. Mariela Roca, she ran last time as well in District 6, and she's planning to run again. She's an excellent candidate with a Air Force background and a doctorate, very great with people. Tom Royals is someone who's new, is a naval flight officer who's planning to run. Heath Barnes was at the Montgomery County Fair. There's a number of people running. So I think that's good for Neil. I think it's good that they're all going to be in a race, and there's going to be a forum on September 20th that the Upper Montgomery Women Republican Club is sponsoring from 6 to 9 p.m. and it's going to be at the Black Rock Center for the Arts. You go to the mcgop.com and you can sign up to go. It'll be an interesting forum to see all the candidates who are going to be talking about the issues.
But isn't the greatest opportunity the fact that there's so many candidates running in the Democratic primary, and that you could get a weakened candidate because they're either from
that's true.
They're either from Frederick and the Montgomery County people won't know her, or they could be such an activist candidate that some of the conservatives in Montgomery County wouldn't vote for her.
Yeah, I still think, a weak Democrat could still beat a strong Republican in Montgomery County. We just got to get the numbers up higher. We know that it's likely that the Democrat will win in the Montgomery County part of the 6th district. We just got to get those numbers higher, and then I think that person can win.
Mike, I'm going to let you have the last word.
Sure. No, I think I love this district because as we've talked in the past, I think having more equal representation districts is better for all of us in a democracy. And I think this is a great representative district in the state of Maryland. And so I think it's going to be a really good race. And I think we should have a really good race. And I just hope we get some stronger candidates in on both sides to actually make it be the race that it should be.
I think it's going to be fun to watch, because we're political junkies. I just think it's going to be great to see, a really competitive race there, as we saw in 22 also. Stay tuned for parting shots when we come back from this short break. And welcome back. Now with parting shots, Mike Knapp.
Well, this is our back to school issue, if you will. And I think as it's not only back to school, but back to work, we're end of summer. And that's usually the time when people start to kind of recalibrate, take stock, think about where we are and where we're going. And I have to say, we have an amazing county that we live in with an amazing set of resources. And I've really been struck by some of the challenges that we're facing from some of the issues as it relates to crime, clearly some of the issues that are being confronted by MCPS, economic development or lack thereof. We've got businesses that are leaving, like Clark Construction, who left last year. Denizens Brewing, which is a bastion in Silver Spring and has been for the last decade, is now moving to Prince George's County. And I guess I hope that we as a community can start to stop and begin to take stock of where we are collectively and start to see where we want to go and what our vision for our community will be. We have tremendous opportunity and assets at our disposal. I just think we're playing very far below our weight class right now. And I think we collectively need to figure out what that looks like. And I hope that as we take stock, that'll be on our list of things to look at.
Thank you, Mike. Laurie Halverson, your parting shot.
Yes, the U.S. News and World Report recently reported the top high schools in the nation, and they were touting Poolesville High School. So congrats to them for being number 140 in the nation. However, I went back. It was a little hard to find all the information, but I was able to find out. I was like, I remembered when I was in the PTA, we used to have a lot more schools in the top 100. And typically we had about 3 of our schools in the top 100 in the nation. In 2013, we had 6 schools in the top 150. Now we don't even have any, or we have 1 school in the top 150. So that's an indication that we are sliding, and parents, you need to do something about it. Parent involvement is so important. We need to speak up. Parents really have a say in education, and I think PTAs need to be more active. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie. I want to thank you both for being here. Many of our viewers may know Mark and Robin Unkefer, who have appeared on our show for many, many years. Our condolences go out to the 2 of them whose son Peter passed away in August, and our best wishes go out to the Unkefer family. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.